Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nights with Ebon Pinion. I'm your host, Raven White, and tonight I am joined by Cormack Baldwin, a special guest. He's the editor of the Archive of the Odd, a speculative found fiction magazine, and I'm super excited to talk with him tonight. So, Cormack, let's get into it and talk all things odd and unusual.
I love the odd and unusual, so hopefully I have something to contribute.
That's my cup of tea right there. I love things that are off the beaten path, that are like super unusual, and just that's kind of like my bread and butter when it comes to the writing world or books in general. It's just I love it so much.
Yeah, it's for for me. I kind of like I well, first of all, I was a strange child, and I feel like all of us in the horror worlds, just like we all look back and we're like, we're kind of weird kids, weren't we? Uh,
Absolutely.
but I was like really into the paranormal and you could ask my parents, my poor parents, from the ages of like 9 to 14. Like I had a bunch of books on like ghosts and mythology, and the way that you could placate me was to give me stuff about like demons, which is completely normal things for like an 11-year-old. Be
Absolutely.
like, I want a 1400s bestiary, and it's like, no, kid, you can get a paper copy of that.
That's amazing.
I still have it actually. It is on my bookshelf. The Book of Beasts. I learned some great facts from that. Like, if you put an eel in a man's wine, he will never drink again. Which I just want to say, I feel like if you put an eel in just about anything and I'm not expecting it, yeah, I'm probably gonna stop eating that thing. Like,
Yeah,
in
I agree. Seems like sound advice there.
It's pretty solid. What is it, Thomas Aquinas? He was really right about certain things, such as eels.
So we have our weird childhood that somehow morphs us into mostly functioning adults, and we bring that with us, right? So tell me about Archive of the Odd. I am so fascinated by this. I did stalk you online a little bit.
That's a-okay. That's a-okay. There's not much on my personal account. I will admit I'm a deeply boring individual. I have described myself as the human equivalent of oat milk.
Oh no.
Um, so like the only interesting things are happening on Archive of the Odd, to be clear. But yeah, so Archive of the Odd is I always write as speculative found fiction, and found fiction is just kind of the literary equivalent of found footage. So there's a lot of epistolary, so letters and diaries and things like that, but also some of the more quirky and unusual formats. We've had pieces in the form of product support, incident reports, scientific journal articles, just about any way that information can be conveyed. That's kind of how we like to see stories set up. And it's just a really fun exercise for both us as the formatters, because we make sure that everything is very true to format. If something is a website, we will make it look like that website. There is a piece that is made out of community posting board. It's very much posters on a cork board, and it took me 10 hours. But there is, in fact, a piece that is a bunch of individually designed posters on a bunch of cork boards, and that will always be my magnum opus. That is Ellen Edwards' community posting board.
That is really fun. I love that so much. Like the whole aesthetic and vibe of it is just so tell me, so like how did you get started like doing this kind of thing and like getting into it? And then once you started it, how did you bring people in?
So I initially started it, and for the longest time, I could not remember my reasoning for it, which is not great. And then eventually, my partner, Evie Smith, who's also the other reading editor, I do most of the formatting, but a lot of the first reading is through Evie. Uh, he was like, you told us why you did it, right?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." And it was because I had a piece. It's actually the first piece that I put on the website. It wasn't published by Archive of the Odd. It was accepted soon after I had kind of set everything up. But I had a piece and I could not find a home for it. It's the final sale of the remaining works of E. Cutler, and it is a piece told in the form of a bunch of auction listings. And so I would submit it and I would get good feedback, and they'd be like, "This is really cool. we love this. We have no idea what to do with it. What is this thing? And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fair. And talking to other authors, it kind of sounded like that happened a lot with these more unusual formats where it's like, yeah, this is great. We love the setup, but we don't know what to do with it. We have a novella coming out, Revenge Arc by Kat Valor, coming out in August. And one of the things that we talked about early on is it's very strange for a traditional publisher or even like a more normal small press. Like it is this very format specific thing that if you put it in plain text, it loses a lot of the charm and a lot of kind of what goes into making the piece what it is, where it's this puzzle. And putting it in just plain text, it kind of fell flat. Not in the case of Revenge Arc, it actually looks very good in plain text too, and I will credit Kat for that one mostly because I didn't do most of the plain text formatting. But a lot of places just didn't know what to do with these really, really weird formats, and they're my favorite. I think it's just a really interesting way of presenting information, especially because like in my day life, I'm an engineer. I'm not actually a publishing professional. Which means that most things that I read are not in the form of fiction. I don't read that much third person, first person limited. I read a bunch of product guidelines and spec sheets and scientific articles, and it's kind of like, well, why don't we read things in the way that we read reality? Like, I probably read more Amazon listings and like Thermo Fisher Scientific listings at this point than I do short stories, and I read a lot of short stories. And so it's just finding a home for those really unusual pieces that kind of felt like the island of misfit toys, where it's like, this is great, but
Yes,
what's happening here?
I love that so much. I really vibe with what you're saying. Like my house came into existence because I just didn't feel like I fit in anywhere, and there wasn't really a space for me. And so I like to refer to my house as like the house of rejects because we all have like really cool stories, but they would never fit into like mainstream lit. So I love that so much. And like, how cool is it though? How cool is it to be to take a medium that isn't popular and just turn it into your own thing and just do it anyway? Like, who cares what other people think? Like, you're doing it and it's so cool. And it sounds like it makes you like really happy. Like, it sounds like you're something you're really passionate about.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. Yes, I do love this. This is kind of like my bread and butter of just weirdness. Is I have a very boring profession. I love my profession. I want to be clear here. I do love my job. I do not plan on quitting it anytime soon. But it's kind of it's like fiction to the max, where it's like there's so many creative decisions. We do full illustrations for pieces, or at least as many as we can. Author artist ratio changes, so that
Yeah.
just not every piece unfortunately gets an illustration, but we try as many as we can. So we have illustrations, we have the formatting, which varies from if it's say in the format of an old book, then we're gonna make it look like an old book, but that's not very difficult. To community posting board, to all of them have very long names. This is truly the purpose of this magazine was actually to help people with very, very long titles to get published because I'm going to mess it up. Um, a series of notes found in the margins of romance novels in the 50-piece section of my local Oxfam.
Oh
There
my
we
word.
go. I definitely messed that up, but it is by Georgia Cook. It is a very good piece, and it is a very long title. I am so sorry, Georgia. Um, but that is very much a bunch of books that I got. I was volunteering at a thrift shop at the time, and there was a bunch of books that we couldn't take for whatever reason. Usually, it was like these are too water damaged to sell. And it's like I'm gonna scan these in. And that one is actually that's mostly fonts, but for Revenge Arc, I very much write things out by hand, scan them in, And so it's a lot of creative decisions that just go into the most random places. Like, yeah, okay, I'm in my Twitter bio is now I am the handwriting model for Riley of Revenge Arc, and it's because there's about 20 pages that's my handwriting.
That's awesome. That is so cool. So you have all this going on. So if we have readers who are interested in like looking into what you do, how do you publish your stuff? Do you do it all online? Do you have print copies available?
So we do everything online currently. We're looking to expand, hopefully to not a physical like location of our own. We are maybe one day, who knows? But looking to get more into the retail space. But for now, we sell mostly on Big Cartel, and we also have digital copies on Itch.io. We mostly use those two channels. We're looking at other ones, but it's a primarily digital zine, and part of that is just because effectively we're a graphic novel, which means that printing costs are like the first issue it's a double issue. It's about 50,000 words total, so it is size of a small novel, but the book is about $22 to print, and it's just because it's this 8x5 of, as far as the printer is concerned, comics. And I'm like, yeah,
Right.
okay, fair. Fair enough. And there are comics in there, that's to be fair. But so yeah, we're currently mostly digital. Uh, you find us in the strangest places. That's the most key thing, is occasionally you will just either find references to us. The weirdest thing that happened is I occasionally help out on fandom zines, which are usually also similar things, mostly digital. And at one point, I was talking to someone and I mentioned doing formatting because I was offering to help out with some of the formatting things. And they were like, wait, you do Archive of the Odd? And I'm like, yeah.
That is so cool.
It's like, you know who I am? It's a very strange feeling. It was the first, like, oh, I know you. And I'm like, you do? You do know me? So, yes, you will find us. And I will be confused, but I will be delighted to have you here.
That's so cool. I Is that like kind of like a what did that moment make you feel like, oh, I finally like made it, or like I'm somebody now?
Oh, it's always very strange. It's always kind of a back and forth where in that moment I'm like, oh, oh, people actually know who I am. That's terrifying. I'm not exactly like a big personality. I appear places, but it's not like I have a huge following. I publish fairly sporadically. And so it's like in that moment, I'm like, people know who I am. People know what Archive of the Odd is. This is a real press. We're actually doing things. And then like I'll talk to people. Like I am now in a publisher's chat with people who are significantly above my level. And I'm like, hey guys, so we're gonna have 4 books as of this summer.
How
And we're super
exciting!
proud of ourselves.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, we're really excited. We love everything we put out, but it's just always this moment of like, am I we are a micropress and we're not afraid of admitting it. Like we are, first of all, extremely niche. It's just speculative fan fiction. Maybe we'll expand outwards eventually, but like that's really all we do. That's all we do for the magazine, and that's all we're planning on doing for like novellas. And so it's like we're very micro and we're not afraid of that. But it is also sometimes like, man, no, we're putting together good work. We love what we put out. We put a lot of care into the pieces. The authors are amazing. The illustrators are amazing. And it's always just delightful to put things together. So it's like, no, we're real. I was filing paperwork for Archive of the Odd recently, and I'm like, this is an actual press. And then I'm like, no, this is just like a weird thing I do. This is my guilty pleasure. No, no, let's not think about business things. That would be terrifying.
Such a cool feeling though. Like you talk about having your projects and they're really good and you're really proud of them. And that's like the best feeling in the world, isn't it? And like working with creative people who are also like in your vibe, they're in your lane and you get along and you understand each other. and you're able to like make this whole thing just like come alive. Like it's incredible from like start to finish.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, there's always the kind of moment like right now we're putting together issue three, we're finishing up formatting, designing promos, things like that. And there's always like that little lull in the middle where it's like there's just a lot of formatting, there's a lot of discussing like illustrations and things, and I'm just like, I send so many emails. Why do I do this? And then like I look at the past issues and I'm like, all of that work, the memory of the work just goes away. And the only thing that matters is this beautiful final product. I'm like, yes, we did it.
We did it.
Um, but yeah, so like currently in the slog, and it's like that's I mean, I still enjoy it, but it's just like there's a lot of just random details like, oh no, I messed up the colors on like this one website and now I have to go fix them. Or like, my margins are off, and it's like not the most fun time. So you have to like be like, no, it's gonna be great when it comes out though.
Yeah, you have to play the long game. You have to like, really like think out into the future and not get hung up on the small details like in between now and then because otherwise it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah. And publishing is not a fast industry by any
Oh
chance.
no, it's not.
Yeah.
It's 100% the long game. And it can take a while too for like things to pick up or for you to get like more feedback and things like that on what you're creating.
Yeah. Yeah. Being small, it's both freeing in that like, oh, okay, we're very niche. And so the people who come to us usually are people who know that they're going to enjoy it or at least recognize that they're getting into something. And it's like if I talk to readers whenever I can, and it's like, oh, well, did you enjoy it? And occasionally it's like, yeah, I didn't know what was happening, but you did warn me. And it's like, yeah, okay, I did warn you. It is a speculative fan fiction magazine. We try to make clear what we do. And so it's like occasionally people are like, yep, didn't work out for me. And I'm like, hey, you know that, I know that, works out. We can continue on our days. Thanks for reading.
So, what are some challenges that you've had? First of all, how long have you been doing it for? And during this time, what are some challenges that you've experienced with your press or with your publications and kind of how you've worked through them and like overcome them? Because a lot of people I feel are not aware of how much work goes into being a small business owner, a small press owner, and the many, many, many hats that we must wear to get the job done.
Yeah. So we started the Kickstarter that was just like hey, I have a fun idea. Let's see if other people are interested. Did that in September. It ran until October of 2021. And then we started accepting submissions October through December and published January 15th of 2022. And I look back on that and I go, what was I doing? I think one of the biggest learning curves for me has just been timing. I luckily slash I mean, no, luckily, I recognize that not everyone does, is I had some experience in editing and things like that. Never as like the editor in chief, but as slush reading or like I said, I've helped out on fanzines occasionally. So it's like I know how to work with writers. I am a writer, so hopefully I know what I'm doing, maybe. But
We
so
all
I
hope
had some
that.
experience. No, we don't. No one knows. No one really knows. We're all lying to ourselves. But so I had some experience. Like I had done slush reading, I had done some editorial decision making, and I had did a bunch of research. I asked around to the people I knew. I was so very confident. I was telling someone earlier, it's like, hey, if you ever need the opinion of like what would a mediocre white guy do in this situation, please just ask me because I will make that decision. There's all the memes about like, I wish I had the confidence of a mediocre white guy. It's great. We're idiots. I've made so many terrible decisions. Archive of the Odd is not one of them. I am so glad of that. But I also sit there and go, what made me think that was a good idea? This is just like, no, I can totally do that. Yeah, sure. I've never run a business before, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. And I did. But I will not deny that there was quite a number of challenges just for things like Oh, how do sales channels work? Oh, how am I supposed to set that up? Oh, how does Goodreads work? I wasn't a Goodreads author at first, and then I did not realize that one of the trials of authorship is that you have to eventually pin Goodreads into submission to force it to admit that you are an author, and that was the only way that I could add books. Um, so it was like it had to have been at least 6 months from the first issue to when we finally had a Goodreads page, and it was just like me going back and forth with Goodreads, like, no, I can give you as many links and as many emails as necessary, but like I'm real. I am the Cormack Baldwin who's on these table of contents. I'm that one. And it took like 6 months. So, but yeah, so it was just a lot of things where I had the broad strokes planned out, but had not thought of all the tiny details of just things like what sales channels are we going to use? Because initially I was like, oh, well, I'm sure there's plenty of them. Like, oh, there's waitlist books, there's drafts. It's going to be great. And then I realized, oh, these don't accept PDFs. Not in this form. These are for like EPUBs and Mobi, and now Mobi is going extinct, which is unfortunate. RIP to Mobi. But like I was so confident and did not think to make sure that they accepted the file that I was putting out.
Oh no.
Um, so there was a lot of just things like that where I was likewise the timing was like, oh well, it's going to be winter holidays. I'm gonna have time. I can do a bunch of things over December. It's going to be great. And we can totally get everything polished by January 15th. It's going to be fine. First of all, I realized in retrospect that was kind of rude to the artists because like they're commissioned per story. So they did not have as long of a window as they really should have. And since then, we have corrected that. We have extended the timing so, everyone can have a moment to breathe.
Important. It's very
Yeah.
important.
But so on January 14th at I think like 8 p.m. I finally finished putting together the first issue. So yeah, I've learned a lot since then, and a lot of it is just kind of the random details that no one tells you because no one thinks to.
Yeah, I feel that. And like my moniker, my tagline, if you will, has always been, um, if I don't know how I can learn, and if I can't learn, I can network, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad I have met so many amazing publishers, and so many amazing authors who were willing to take pity on me, and were like, "Hey, do you want me to get you in touch with someone?" And yes, yes, I have gotten over my head. But yeah, I've met so many amazing publishers and so many amazing authors and artists and people who were just really willing to either get me in contact with someone or just like explain some of the things where it's like, "Hey, yeah, you can't. This is a bad timeline." And I'm like, oh no. And it's like, no, it's okay. We'll work through this. I'm like, thank you so much. Thank you. It is a very collaborative experience. Even if they're not in the table of contents, there are so many people. I feel like I should have, there's an acknowledgments page on the first issue because that was for Kickstarter backers. But then I feel like there should be an acknowledgments page on all of them. It's just like, thank you to Alan for helping out Cormac. Thank you to let's see, just I'm trying to just first name people so I don't accidentally like, uh name people who don't want to be named. But yeah, there's just so many things like thank you for sharing these assets that I didn't realize I didn't have so I could put together a promo. Thank you so much for letting me use this photograph. Thank you for explaining to me how Itch.io works. I don't know why it took me so long. Um, yeah, there should just be an entire page of thank yous. That's just the tiny things that you never think about that ultimately are what lets you put together anything. Like any piece of creative work is so many people go into it, regardless
It
of whether or
really
not
is.
they're on the table of contents.
Oh yes. I think that is one of the nicest things about being part of the indie community because I haven't met like really any mean people or anything like that. been surrounded by people that are, really kind and compassionate, and like we've all been there at some point. We've been over our head, or we've been like burned out, or just, we just need a helping hand or a boost, or we don't know what we don't even know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having people show up for you and like support your endeavor is really important and huge. And I think when it comes to the indie community, there really doesn't really need to be competition, because we're all doing the same thing but differently. So
Yeah.
there's room for all of us. And like when one of us is doing really well, the rest of us does well too, because it just uplifts the whole community.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've also been really lucky. I know that there are bad actors in the community, and I have never interacted with any of them, and I kind of amazed. At I don't know if I have some kind of like secret vibe check that I've just been running at all times, or if I'm just really lucky. I think it's the second one. My vibes are not. I do not have that great of a. Oh yeah, okay. No, no, you're not cool. No, I do not. I will confess. Pure luck. Um, I do also think though it's very important to like surround yourself with people that you would want to interact with, and I don't mean necessarily like people who agree with you on literally everything forever. First of all, because I am very argumentative, and so that would just fall apart so quickly. But just people who you're like, okay, I know that if I ask a question, they're not going to make fun of me for it. And if they ask a question, I know that I'm going to give them an answer. And it's like being able to have that kind of back and forth, that feeling comfortable to talk to people, to ask for favors and to give favors in return, that has been just super important. And I'm really glad I've met a lot of the people who I have. I feel like I should just give like a long shout out to like everyone. Like, thanks. Y'all are amazing. You're great.
I was thinking about it the other day. I was, I so a lot of the people in my life now I would consider like my regular like everyday friends. And I couldn't imagine like not knowing them. The power of the internet, if we will, bringing us all together and this common ground is just, it's incredible to me. And being able to network with people and find people like you who do such cool stuff. And it's like I don't think I would have, like we would never have connected if it hadn't been for that, if it hadn't been for the community.
Yeah. No, it's yeah, I feel like everyone always stresses like the indie horror community is fantastic, and it is for anyone who might be on the outside and is like, are they actually saying that, or are they just saying that like, because of course they want to like shout out people who they like. No, it's like honestly, these people are great. Like, my mother is a romance author. Fun fact. You will find her because I occasionally interact with her on Twitter, which is just a normal thing for an adult son to do.
It is, sure.
Yes, but it's occasionally so because Twitter doesn't understand how things work. It started feeding me for a while there all the discourse that was happening in Romance Landia or Romance
Oh,
Land,
nice.
and it was very interesting to kind of turn and be like, huh. Wow, because like we have issues, but we're remarkably good at responding to them. When they come to light. Generally, we respond relatively quickly, and so I would just watch things slow burn. And I'm like, I'm really glad to be surrounded by people who are willing to act in each other's benefit. I'm glad. No shame to romance authors, by the way. Just like
No shame.
yeah, they're very cool, but it is they're also aware that Romance Landia can be a wild place. Like the author who faked her own death, like that was from them. That is their camp. They accepted it. They claimed her, and so the rest of us can just kind of go. I
Mind our own
cannot
business.
fathom this happening. No, this is not in my indie horror community. Um,
I had the privilege of attending the Ghoulish Book Festival in Texas, in San Antonio. And it's the coolest festival I have ever been to. If I had to pick one festival to go to for the rest of my life, it would hands down be that one. Max and Lori are so cool, and the festival was just amazing. And I met so many cool people there that I had never met before. And we're like all friends now. And they were so nice to me. Like, I don't know these people, but they were like so nice and welcoming. And then we became friends on Twitter. And now we hang out in Discord. And I'm like, wow, who knew it was so easy to make friends?
No one told me it would be this easy as an adult. Like,
I'm like, as an adult, it is so hard to make friends. It's so hard to talk with people and like be interesting or to just be yourself and like not freak people out.
yeah, yeah, no, one of the I feel like pretty indicative of basically my social skills as an adult human being who has been on this planet for long enough to know better. How about that? Was at one point, so I'm from Alaska,
Oh,
initially. I was raised there basically the entirety of my I don't want to say childhood because I was like partially an adult. I moved for college essentially. But
you were
at
there
some
for phase one.
yeah, I was in my larval to like pupil stage, I would say. But at one point at college, I was at a very nice Shabbat dinner with a bunch of people who I did not know. And so I'm sitting there, and I always have like I was either knitting or crocheting. I always have something in my hands, and someone was talking to me and mentioned, "Oh, you're from Alaska. That's really cool." Like, does it ever scare you, like the thought of like going into the woods or something? Like, is that scary? Because like you could get hurt. I'm like, oh no, you just die. If you get lost in the woods, you just die. I don't know, I wasn't paying attention because I was like, no, I'm counting my stitches right now. This is
You're
not the time
dead.
to
You're
talk to
just
me.
dead.
But no, and then there was just dead silence, and I had to like sit up and go, I wasn't wrong, but I shouldn't have said it. Like, I mean, it's just like it's not worth it to be afraid. It's already decided for you. No, it's yeah, the Christopher McCandless and other kind of people who self-styled adventurers who went to Alaska and bad things happened. Fun fact, actually, what is it? I can't remember the book now. The book about Christopher McCandless, the man who lived on the bus in the Alaskan
Yes,
wilderness.
I read it in college. It traumatized me.
Yeah, yeah. My hometown comes up in that book. And they interviewed my best friend's mother.
Oh,
So that is a completely useless fun fact. Is like I have like 3 degrees removed from this book. But yeah, that's really colored how a lot of people see Alaska. And it's always weird coming down here to the lower 48 to realize how much of it is true and how much of it isn't. Like explaining to people that no, I had electricity. Really, I promise I had electricity. Um, but then occasionally, I like people will be like, "Oh, did you like mush dogs to school?" And I'm like, "No, I didn't, but my dad did." So, yeah, you
that's
win this one. Yeah,
amazing.
no, we had a Subaru, but you know, my dad, yes, he did have a dog sled, but that's not the point.
Oh, I love that so much. That's so funny. I've never met anybody from Alaska before. I'm from
Yeah, no,
Ohio, and I don't know what happened, but Ohio's turned into like a giant meme. My friends like to send it to me all the time, like these memes about Ohio, and I don't understand. The memes aren't wrong, but I don't understand.
yeah, no, it's I've seen them too. And it's very weird. So in issue 3, actually, oh, we can finally I can tie things back to Archive of the Odds. Success. But marketing success. But in issue 3, we have an extreme horror piece that is set in Ohio.
Perfect.
And then Revenge Arc, which is I would not call it extreme horror, but I would call it fairly graphic horror, is also set in Ohio. And so I was just kind of, and at one point I was emailing the two authors back to back. And I messed up at some point and sent someone the wrong thing because in my head they were just like, "That's Ohio is dangerous," and one of you is telling me about it. Can't remember who. Yeah, so I don't know what's going on in Ohio, but it does sound quite threatening from my outside perspective. I've been maybe once. I don't even remember. I might have been
Well,
in
it's probably a
Ohio.
good thing you don't remember.
Yeah, it's clearly a very dangerous place. Bad things seem to happen to people in Ohio.
Well, I tend to not go out late at night. I definitely don't go into the woods. Um, and yeah, and when you see a cow come up to you from the fence, you go the other way because that ain't no cow.
Very threatening. Yeah, somehow Ohio completely superseded the concept of agriculture for me, which I feel like in retrospect, yes, obviously there are probably farms in Ohio, and I'm like, why is there a cow? That's that's like that's where like Cleveland is. Like, there's no
I
cows in
actually
Cleveland.
live in like farmland. I live in wine country here in Ohio.
Oh,
So there's lots of vineyards and there's cornfields and then there's the occasional cow. You don't go into the cornfields either.
no, no. My sibling lives in Wisconsin, in the middle of like in the middle of a cornfield, and I just kind of sit there and go, "How did that happen? Why is your work and like essentially his house here, work, over here, and then corn?" And I'm just
Oh,
like, that's not a normal setup. That's
it's
not
not.
how people live. I've lived in the Pacific Northwest now the entirety of my life. And so my concept of what is normal is completely skewed. Um, I did not know how stoplights worked until I was 18. That was the Alaska part. But at the same time, I feel very confident in being able to judge other states for such things as, why do you have so much corn? What are you doing with all of it? We don't do that here.
We have a lot of corn and vineyards. We have some orchards. Fun fact, I when I was younger, I was deathly afraid of I was convinced that there were zombies out in the orchards. I'm still not convinced that there's not. I was
Has anyone shown
I
you any proof
lived
that there isn't?
on an orchard for a while and I was working like really early shift, like 2, 3 in the morning, of course. And
Yeah,
so
I'm
every
zombie
morning
time.
when I would have to like run out because it was the house was right here and the orchard was like right there. And I would like steel myself, right? Turn the lock on my key on so that so that the car was unlocked, and I would book it, run as fast as I could to get into my car and slam the door shut before the zombie orchard people
Comes
come and get me.
that's the new quick. So someone pitched this as like the, I guess not the sequel, but the trequel, the third of Clown in a Cornfield. No, it's time that we reach zombies in the orchard.
I mean, yeah. Well, I was so like impacted by it for such a long time that I did end up writing a short story about a haunted apple orchard. And the trees actually they morphed into monsters and would like envelop you and eat you.
Nice. I'm all for trees eating people. I think at this rate they deserve it.
Honestly though, yeah.
Yeah, they've really earned the privilege, I would say. Yeah, I have a couple of pieces of eco horror out, and at least two of them a tree tries to eat you, and like I hesitate to say I have a brand, but like starting to become a pattern.
I'm here for it. I'm here for the trees devouring people.
Yeah, I chopped a lot of wood as like a child through adolescent, and
Oh,
so like I feel like maybe I'm kind of trying to placate trees, just like, hey guys, I love you. A real great job on the oxygen. I really love it. Shade, huge fan.
well,
Please
and
do.
you know, trees don't forget.
They
Like
don't.
they communicate through their root system with their vibrations and their energy and everything. Like they know. They know who you are when you walk into their forest.
There are mycelial networks that are significantly larger than anything that I could ever contend with were it to rise up and attack me. Um,
Absolutely.
how was it? My partner and I were reading a book on fungi recently, and they gave some kind of, it was if you took all the mycelia on Earth and laid them like tip to tip, hyphae to hyphae, you would span half the galaxy. And I'm like,
Oh my word.
I don't know what's worse, whether you're making that up because then you're lying to me, Mushroom Man, or whether you're telling the truth, because I don't like either of those answers. Like, I don't like the idea of a space ladder made out of fungi. but I simultaneously don't like the idea of a scientist lying to me about fungi. So like it's really a toss-up of like what's the worst option.
A space ladder made out of fungi sounds like really great cosmic horror, though.
It would be very small though. The hyphae are not that big. You need significantly more mushrooms, I think, than we currently have, is my issue. I'm also not real sure how they calculate that one. They did not specify how they got those numbers, which makes me
Interesting.
suspicious. Merlin Sheldrake, if you're listening, you better explain yourself.
We demand answers.
Where are you getting these numbers? How tall are these hyphae?
Eh. You could say that if he's just making up, he's not being a very fun guy.
Yay! No, I will not say that. Under no circumstances will I say that.
Oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Oh my gosh, yes. I don't know how we got on that. Like, that was amazing, though. I loved that transition.
Corn. It happens to the best
Corn,
of us.
yes.
Corn. Yeah.
You know,
I
there
feel
is
like it,
fungus that grows on corn that if you eat it, it gives you hallucinations.
yeah, ergot. I actually one of my jobs. My resume is a very fun read. I'm not going to share it, obviously, but like if anyone wants my LinkedIn, y'all are looking for biomedical engineers. But anyways, so I lived in the grass capital of the world, as was on the giant sign, outside of the county limits. But and one of my jobs was to test for ergot, toxins in a bunch of grass samples.
Nice.
It was in college. I was not paid wildly well. I was essentially just it was chemistry lab. I learned a lot of wet lab skills, so a lot of things that ultimately did help me. But most of all, the most important part about that job was the fact that I was for 8 hours a day essentially pipetting things, moving fluids from one to another, and just quadruple checking to make sure it was the right one because you have to get into like parts per trillion on those guys because otherwise you might poison the livestock you are trying to feed. Um, but the most important part of that was I was allowed to have podcasts in because I think they realized that I would go feral if I was in this silent laboratory for 8 hours with a bunch of ergot toxin. I think eventually they realized that that was maybe a dangerous setup. And so I was allowed to listen to audiobooks and podcasts. And man, I slammed through like 60 books in one summer. It
That's
was
amazing.
great. It was amazing. I read some fantastic horror. There was a lot of horror going on. Um, so it'd be like 6 a.m. I roll up to the lab, put in my podcast, or put in my book, it depended on the day, and it was just like, okay, I'm gonna pipette a bunch of things, and I'm going to like. At one point, I audibly gasped as I was doing something, and they thought I had poured something on myself because there are
Oh
lots
no.
of dangerous chemicals. And they're like, "Are you okay? Did something happen? Are you getting a chemical burn?" I'm like, "No, no." So someone died. It's okay. You're fine. I mean, not me. I didn't die. I'm all right. Hopefully the livestock won't die. I'm doing my job very well. I was one of the top performers. So yeah, hit me up for that LinkedIn. Yeah, no, I don't think anyone died, but yeah, there was a brief moment where I just made a very alarming noise for something that handles very toxic chemicals.
This is amazing. I've enjoyed myself so much.
I'm glad, thank you. I've enjoyed myself too.
Great.
There
That maybe that will bring you back again sometime. We can have episode two talking
Oh
about
yeah, I
other
never even
funguses,
told you
maybe.
about
I
the
don't know.
appearing graveyards. I did not get into the glories of my hometown, such as the fact that I moved there. I was like really young, but I moved there with like two graveyards, and there were seven by the time I left. Um, yeah, that takes a while. So unfortunately, yeah, you're just gonna have to get me.
Oh my gosh, yes. Okay. Well, so Archive of the Odd. Tell us
Okay.
where we can find everything that we need to know and the best way to like get in contact with you or find out whatever we need to know about you or like Archive of the Odd.
Archive of the Odd, everything is very consolidated on archiveoftheodd.com. It's all one word, archive. like archive of the and then odd. And so that's where you're going to find there's a story directory for everything that's free to read. There's buy links for all of the issues that are they're like $3 is the issue 2. The first issue being a double issue is 5, but it is a good deal. It's got 14 authors, 10 artists. It's a rollicking good time. There are many squid. Actually, across all issues, there are squid. Fair warning. But yeah, so everything is on Archive of the Odd. We can be reached at archiveoftheodd@gmail.com. We like talking to people. Really, it might take me a second depending on what I'm doing. As I said, this isn't my day job, so occasionally I'm just not there. But we'll get back to you as soon as I can. And then we're also Archive of the Odd on Twitter and Tumblr, and we like talking to people there too. We are a very chatty bunch. If there are any questions about for our authors, any questions about submissions, feel free to ask. There's no such thing as a silly question with us. First of all, because like as far as concepts go, I feel like we're pretty up there in the silliness bar. And so if anyone was to be like, I don't know if this is going to work out, and it's like, we've definitely published something weirder than you. So you're safe. You're safe here. This is, if it's weird, we want it. And yeah, if you want to read it, we have both free to read on the website and then buy links on Itch.io and Big Cartel, Archive of the Odd everywhere. But yeah.
And are you currently accepting submissions?
Not at the moment. We're finishing up issue 3, so it's just focusing on that for the moment. But then we're planning to open up later in the year. We're still figuring out exact times, but I will be posting that on social media and on the website and everything. We've had a pretty inconsistent schedule just because all of the editors work, and so figuring out like, okay, when are all of us going to be roughly free for like a 3-month period? That's always a bit difficult, but we're hoping to hammer something down now that we've tested a few different time periods and have more consistent open periods in the future.
That sounds great. Well, I will include all of the links in the description below. So please check out Cormack, his amazing Archive of the Odd. Give them a shout out. Follow them on Twitter. As you can tell, it's been super fun. And I think that our audience will enjoy what it is that you've been putting out. So thank you so much for coming onto my podcast to talk with me and hang out. It's been really fun getting to know you and learning about what you do.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Please stay safe from all of those zombie orchards.
I will do my best. Like,
yes,
no promises, but I'll
that's a
try.
good fight.
Well, thank you everybody for watching and listening. This has been another episode of Nights with Ebon Pinion. Remember, we may be different species, but we're all part of the same family. So be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and we will see you soon.